believe that. Can you just sort of, I guess, reflect on how things have got so badly with China, and in particular, I guess, the hypocrisy of them when you hear Xi Jinping give speeches and talking about free trade and keeping international commerce going, and yet here he is carrying on like a bully boy tactics, beating up on a small kid in the playground, which is what it looks like very much. Do you think the message is that China is just an unreliable business partner?
Well, if these are my final days in the trade portfolio, I'm not about to throw diplomacy out the door, much to your disappointment in the last few days. Look, we've seen, as I've reflected through the course of the year, that the risk profile of trading and doing business with China has grown throughout the course of this year. That the fact that China has accumulated a series of decisions that look like sanctions against Australia obviously changes that risk proposition for Australian businesses and industries as they choose to consider doing business with China. And it also has a knock-on effect in relation to others around the world. Australia is not the first country to see China apply different trade sanctions against them that appear to lack justification if you just look at the trade elements of the relationship. And so that heightened risk profile is one that all businesses around the world potentially face, which means it's a bad outcome for China and the Chinese economy, as well as for economies like ours around the world. That ultimately China faces the prospect that businesses making commercial decisions around the world will decide that there's a higher risk and potentially not worth the rewards that are there, and they will take their trade or investment avenues elsewhere. But China is also still the second largest economy in the world, the biggest consumer goods market in our region, a market with a burgeoning middle class, and unsurprisingly, given that scale, is the number one trading partner for us and for most other countries within our region, the vast majority of other countries within our region. So we are right to stand by our values, which includes the principles of supporting China's economic prosperity, which has achieved the miracle of our lifetime in lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and improving living standards for many as a result of that. We're right to stand by that as an objective worthy of continued pursuit and worthy of Australia continuing to seek to engage and support through a partnership approach. But none of that comes with a selling out of our values. None of that comes with Australia compromising in relation to our national security objectives. And ultimately, what is going to be required here is from Australia a period of calm, consistency and patience, and for China, we hope, to be willing to come to the table recognising that Australia is going to be consistent in all of our values, but that includes our willingness to engage with them, and we will sit down at any time to re-engage at the highest levels to try to work through these issues and to make sure that our peoples and our businesses who have for a considerable period of time built a strong relationship are able to get back onto that strong footing.
Minister, you
Is the government making representations to the incoming Biden administration to quickly accelerate the appointment of those WTO appellate judges so that institutions such as the WTO can get up and running better than they have been under the Trump administration?
We've got many issues across a range of levels to talk to the Biden administration about as they take office. We'll have discussions in due course about the WTO appellate body, but right now we're at the very early stages of a potential dispute with China. Now moving into those formal consultations and then the appointment of a panel, as I outlined before. The prospect of an appeal is still quite some distance off. And as I stressed, we do, as a result of Australia and China and other countries cooperating in the WTO, have an alternate mechanism already available to us and agreed between us as to how such an appeal would be resolved.
Minister, you say that
Last one.
Consistent with its values, that it respects the rules and it's transparent. But let me take you back to Eric's question with regards to Mengnu Dairy, attempted takeover of Lion. Now, it had passed FIRB had said no problem. The ACCC said there was no problem, Treasury said there was no problem, and yet, for some undeclared reason, Josh Frydenberg blocked it. So aren't the Chinese right in being rather cross at our hypocrisy?
No, I don't think that's an appropriate way to present it, Andrew. In the end, as I said before, the vast majority of FIRB applications, of foreign investment applications, including the vast majority of China's applications, continue to be successful through our processes.
But they singled this one out last night.
I understand there may be a singling out in relation to one that was one of a few that was unsuccessful versus the many that are successful. China is an important part of our foreign investment landscape, by no means the largest. Our largest foreign investment is the United States, our second largest is the United Kingdom, our third largest is Japan, the European Union being essentially our fourth largest collectively without the UK as part of that mix. So we do see that China, I think, comes in at about number 6, but in all of those cases, the vast majority of applications are accepted, and Australia continues to emphasise that we are open and welcoming to foreign investment where it passes the national interest test, and we've demonstrated that by saying yes in the vast majority of cases.